Welcome to this practical lesson about storing employees' data using object-oriented concepts by using class. First of all, we need to create a class, as you can see, and this class is called employee. We define that class using the class keyword, using this reserved keyword from Python library. The class keyword is used to define any class in Python. And this is the main template for creating objects. After that, you can create many instances based on that class. And at the end of this header, this class header, you can see a colon. After that, you can hit enter or return, and you will start the body of that class, the indented body, by forward spaces automatically. And inside the body of that class, you will see an attribute called count to start counting from 0 for employees. Set count is equal to 0. This is called an attribute, a variable inside the class called employee, as you can see. After that, let's set the init function. The init function or the init method inside the class, init function inside a class is called a method. The goal of using the init function is to initialize the object state, and this method is like a constructor, and the task of using the init function is to initialize or to assign values to data members of that class, and these data members are objects from that class or instances which we are gonna create based on that class called employee in that case. Let's create the init function. Inside the indented body of that class called employee, define this method called init using the def keyword. And you can take a look at the header of that function. You will see the self parameter comes first, then name, then position, and salary. The self parameter. Let's talk about the self parameter first. This self parameter is used to represent the instance of the class. And by using this parameter or this keyword inside the parentheses of the init function, you can access the attributes or variables and methods of that class called employee using Python programming language. Actually, this self parameter is used to bind the attributes or variables with the given arguments. So you need to use this self parameter, and you can name it any name you wish instead of self, but self is the most common, self is the most popular name for that parameter. Why we use that parameter in Python programming language called self? We use that self parameter in Python programming language or that self keyword because Python programming language doesn't use the @ syntax to refer to instance attributes. That is the reason of using the self parameter. And as we said beforehand, you can name it any name instead of self if you wish, but self is the most popular. After that, you can see the next argument or the next parameter is name, then position, then salary, and you can set many parameters as you wish. Inside the init function, we inserted 4 variables, as you can see, or 4 instance attributes. Self.name is equal to name, self.position is equal to position, and the self parameter is used to access these attributes or these instance attributes from inside the init function, from inside the employee class. Then self.salary is equal to salary to access the salary attribute. And after that, you will see the incrementation for employees. You have to put this in this incrementation for employees 0, then 1, then 2, and so on. Employee.count plus equals 1. This is about incrementation for increasing the counting of employees by 1. The next step that we are gonna do is creating a method inside the employee class to display the number of employees, the count of employees that we are gonna use in this example. So let's create this method inside the same level of the init function inside the body of the class called employee. Also, that function that we created called display count function, we defined it using the def keyword, the reserved keyword, to declare any function in Python programming language, a user defined function, but that function inside the body of that class. So that function is called a method. This method is called display count, and it has also self parameter to access the attributes or the instance attributes for that method. And you can take a look inside that function or inside that method. You will see inside the body of that method we used the print function by calling it. The print function is a built-in function to display any text, to print out a text or to print out a result for any operation on the screen. The print function is used to display there are employees. The count of employees will be inserted in the position of %d. We used the string formatting command inside the print function here. The modulo d or the %d or the reminder d is used for numbers, and you can use modulo s, for example, for strings and so on. And to insert the count of employees inside this position or in this position inside that string data type, we used modulo employee.count after that string data type in between double quotes. After these double quotes, you will see reminder employee.count to insert the count of employees that we are going to use in this example in the position of reminder d in the string data type. There are the number of employees. We need to create another method inside that employee class, and this method is to display the details for each employee like name, position, and salary. And we are gonna use that method by calling it using objects after creating that template. You can see that method here. This method is called display details. We defined it. We declared it using the def keyword also. And also don't forget to put the self parameter to access the attributes or the instance attributes. And inside that body of that function called display details or that method, we used the print function to display name and self.name, the value of name here, then position and the value of position using self.position, and the last one salary, then self.salary to display the salary that we are gonna insert. By using objects after creating that class, we are gonna insert different values for different employee. We are gonna create 4 objects or 4 instances based on that template or that employee class. For each employee, we are gonna insert a name, a position, and a salary. Let me show you that. Let's create objects based on the employee class. We have 4 objects as you can see. The first one is emp1 or employee1, and the value for that object is the calling of the class called employee. And based on that class, we insert a value for name employee1, and we insert a value also for position HR for employee1, and at the end we inserted salary for employee1, as you can see simply. And we did the same thing for employee2. emp2 is equal to employee, the main template, the class, and for name we inserted employee2, for position we inserted manager, and we inserted a salary for that manager. And after that you will see employee3, another object, the third object here, and the value for that object employee, and the name for that employee is employee3, and its position is programmer, and we inserted a salary for that programmer. And we created an object also for the last one, and this object is called emp4 or employee4, and the value for that employee is the calling of the class. This object also based on the class called employee, and the name for that employee is employee4, and the position is engineer, and we inserted a salary for that engineer. And you can create as many objects as you wish, not only 4. You can create for many employees using the same concept. using the same concept, and you can create many parameters, not only name, position, and salary. You can create, for example, a parameter called ID and many more. To display the count of these employees or to display the number of these employees, you can use the function called display count. And we are gonna use employee 4 with that function, with the calling of that function called display count, to display the number of employees, because this is the last employee here, and the number of employees or the count of employees is 4, is equal to 4. Let's call that function with employee 4 or the last object called emp4. You can see our last employee, employee 4, followed by the dot notation, followed by the calling of the display count function or the display count method. And don't forget to insert an empty braces or an empty parenthesis. After that, to display the values or to display the details for each employee, use the object for each employee with the calling of the display details function or the display details method from inside the employee class. Let's do that for all the employees here. You can see here, first of all, we used the print function to display a text before the calling, before the values for employee 1, employee 2, employee 3, and employee 4. This text using the print function is information about employee. And after that, you can see the object name emp4 followed by the dot notation followed by the name of that method called display details method, the calling of that function or that method based on the employee class. We call that method here called display details to display the data for employee 1. And the data for employee 1 will be name, then employee 1, position and HR, then salary and the salary for that employee 1. And we did the same thing for employee 2, for employee 3, and for employee 4. For employee 2, you will see name, then employee 2, position, then manager, salary, and the salary for that manager or that employee 2. For employee 3, by using the object name followed by the dot notation followed by the calling of the display details function, you will see the text from inside that function, name, then employee 3 due to calling that function with new values using emp3 object. After that, position, then programmer, and salary and the salary for employee 3. And the same sequence for employee 4. You will see name, then the name for employee 4, which is employee 4, position, engineer, and the salary for that engineer or for employee 4. That's it simply. Now let's hit shift enter or shift return to show the output. You can see the output here. The first output is the count of employees using the calling of display count method by using the class called employee with the object called emp4. We created that instance emp4 based on the class called employee, and we call that function or that method from that class to display the count of employees, which is there are 4 employees in the output as you can see. After that, the print function printed information about employee, the text before values we talked about previously, the output for emp1.display details, the name of that object, followed by the dot notation, followed by the display details function, the calling of that function, and the same thing for employee 2, for employee 3, and the last one for employee 4. That's it. So simple and so easy as you can see. Let's summarize all what we did in this lesson quickly. First of all, we created a class, and inside that class, inside the indented body of that class, we created the init function or the init method. Any function inside a class is called a method, and this function is used to initialize the object state as we said previously. And inside the body of that function, you will see self.name is equal to name, self.position is equal to position, self.salary is equal to salary, and to increase the count, to display the count for employees, and we start counting from 0 previously before the init function. We used this incrementation here inside the body of that constructor called init. And don't forget to use the self parameter in Python programming language in that class, because Python programming language doesn't use the syntax to refer to instance attributes. So if you want to refer to instance attributes, you have to use the self parameter. After that, and inside the body of that class, we created a method called displayCount to display the count for employees by using the string formatting technique to display the RAR and the number of employees. And that counting or that number will be inserted inside the position or in the position of reminder div. This is for numbers in string formatting technique. After that, we created another method to display the details for each employee, and the print function inside that method to display name, then self.name to access the attribute or the instance attributes to refer to instance attributes once you create an object. After that, after creating that class, once you create an object based on that class, name, then the value of name, position, then the value of position, then the last one salary and the value of salary. And we created 4 objects based on the same class called employee. From emp1 to emp4 we have 4 objects here, 4 employees, so the count for these employees is equal to 4. And by using these objects, we inserted values or data for each employee, for name, for position, and salary for each employee from employee 1 to employee 4. And we called a method called displayDetails with each object based on the class called employee to display data for each employee, to display the details for each employee from employee 1 to employee 4 simply, and you can see the output. That's it. So simple and so easy. Try to do this by yourself. Try to create more than 4 employees, and also try to create many parameters, not only name, position, and salary. You can create many parameters and you can insert values for these parameters. And if you need any help, please ask me and I'll answer you as soon as possible. Thanks a lot for watching. See you again next lesson.